what are some of the unique challenges that you're seeing right now, just in terms of helping people along as they try to follow Jesus in all areas of their life, including their sexuality? And then what are some of the opportunities that you think we might have in this particular moment?
Yeah, I think, listening to what you were saying, one of the things that I notice in people is that they separate the things that they consider like the underbelly of sex and sexual ethic, like human trafficking and rape and domestic violence, from their own personal behavior. And they don't see the connection that like the way that I sin and the way that I think can lead to things like this.
Yes.
And that there isn't this gigantic gap between the behavior of someone who's buying sex and the behavior of a person who's like stepping into their own space of lust or their own space of, just seeking their own pleasure for their own good. And I see that in very small ways when it comes to things like online dating and the way it's been commercialized and you have to pay and the way that you have to, swipe and swipe and swipe. You're consuming people in a way that we weren't designed to consume each other. And those things can be used for good, but they also can easily lead us down a path that just puts us in a space where we don't know how to build relationships well anymore. And so I think one of the challenges that we face a lot in, especially in the church and dealing with singleness, is trying to help people understand that relationships are possible outside of sexual relationships, and that relationships can be good and healthy and thriving, and they don't have to include sex. And so as a single person, my ultimate desire can't just be for sexual fulfillment if I'm going to honor and believe the things that Jesus says are true about friendship, about family, about the church being brothers and sisters. And so for me, I try to challenge people to see, what does it look like to build a healthy understanding of how Jesus views friendship, how he views family, before I think about how he views marriage or how he views sex, because those things are not promised. And so it can be really difficult in this day and age because there's this temptation to buy into the view that those things are promised to me. And if they're not, like, that promise is not fulfilled, then I need to go fulfill it myself. And so trying to find a way to help people understand that there's more to life than sex. Not saying that sex isn't great. I'm sure it is, but I wouldn't know. So, but there's this real dynamic that there's got to be more to what God has called us to as people than this one way to fulfill desire. The beautiful things that come out of that, there were so many conversations with people who have recognized that there's something else in their life besides sex that can give them fulfillment. And that there's so much grace for those spaces where we've already walked into sexual sin or sexual brokenness, places where we've experienced hurt because of the way other people have treated us when it comes to sex, places that people have been abused. Like, God has a multitude of forgiveness for the ways we've messed up, but he also has a multitude of grace and mercy for the ways that we've been taken advantage of. And so I get to walk in conversations all of the time with people where I get to show them the love of Christ, the love of Jesus, the way that he heals those wounds that they've experienced. I think there's an easy dynamic for people in the church to move into this space of, we cause all of the sexual sin and brokenness in our life, but that's not true. There's a very real fact that other people's behavior affects what happens to us in our own life. And so we get to be the people who bring healing to those who've experienced brokenness because of someone else's behavior, because of someone else's choice or sin. And we get to help call people to accountability for their own choices and behavior. So that's a huge part of what I think we're called to do as a church, not just when it comes to sexual ethic, but to all the way that we live our life as believers, but specifically in this day and age with sex.
That's incredible.